In every generation, across the vast stretches of time, humanity has sought meaning. We have pondered our purpose, and we have asked, again and again, why are we here? Yet, amidst the noise of our world, one voice continues to call to us. It is the voice of God, echoing through the ages, inviting us into a life of purpose, love, and service. God's calling is not reserved for a few. It is for each of us, whether whispered through the gentle winds of creation or proclaimed boldly through the events of history. It beckons us to rise and remember who we are, children of the divine, called to reflect His goodness and grace. When God calls, He calls us not just to believe but to act. This is a call to love one another, to lift up the brokenhearted, to seek justice where there is none, and to be the hands and feet of compassion in a world that often forgets what it means to care. God's call is a call to build bridges where there are divisions, to speak peace into the chaos, and to extend hope to those who feel forgotten. In the Bible, we see God calling out to people time and time again. He called to Abraham, inviting him to step into an unknown future with the promise of blessing. He called to Moses from a burning bush, urging him to lead his people from bondage to freedom. He called to the prophets, asking them to speak truth to power, no matter the cost. And, of course, He called to His Son, Jesus, who embodied perfect love and sacrificial service, showing us the fullness of God's heart. Today, that same call reaches out to us. It is a call that stirs in the quiet moments of reflection and in the midst of our daily routines. It invites us to align our lives with God's will, to become part of something greater than ourselves, and to embrace our divine purpose. But responding to this call requires courage. It means letting go of fear and embracing faith. It means stepping out of our comfort zones and daring to be agents of change in a world that desperately needs it. It means trusting that God's plans for us are better than anything we could design on our own. So, how do we respond to God's calling? First, we must listen. The world is noisy, and the voice of God is often still and quiet. In prayer and meditation, and in moments of silence, we can tune our hearts to His voice. Second, we must be willing. God calls us to different paths, some to lead, some to serve, some to teach, and some to heal. No matter what form it takes, we must be ready to say, "Here I am, Lord. Send me." Finally, we must act. Faith is more than belief. It is movement. It is stepping out in trust, knowing that God will guide our steps even when we cannot see the road ahead. My friends, God's call to humanity is timeless. It is a call to love, to serve, and to live with purpose. It is a call to be the light in a world that often feels dark. It is a call to embody the hope, peace, and grace that God offers to us all. Let us answer that call. Let us rise together as one human family to live out the purpose for which we were created, to love God, to love one another, and to bring His kingdom of peace and justice to earth. Throughout human history, individuals and communities have sought to understand the deeper purpose of life and their place in the grand design of the universe. Central to this quest is the idea of God's calling, a concept that transcends religious boundaries and speaks to the human experience of being invited into a relationship with the divine and called to fulfill a meaningful purpose. God's calling is both personal and universal, compelling individuals to align their lives with His will, to live with compassion and integrity, and to contribute to the well-being of the world. At the heart of God's calling is the idea that life has purpose beyond mere survival or self-gratification. From a theological perspective, God's call is an invitation into a life that reflects His nature, marked by love, service, and a sense of moral responsibility. The Bible and other religious texts provide numerous examples of individuals who heard and responded to this call. Abraham was called to leave his homeland and trust God's promise of blessing. Moses was called to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, and the prophets were called to speak truth and justice in societies that had lost their way. In each of these examples, the call of God involves not only personal transformation, but also a commitment to the greater good. It is a call to participate in God's unfolding plan for humanity, where individuals are invited to partner with the divine in bringing about justice, peace, and healing in the world. One of the most challenging aspects of understanding God's calling is learning to recognize and respond to it. The call is not always dramatic or obvious. Often, it comes in the form of quiet nudges, inner convictions, or persistent feelings that draw people towards certain paths. For many, responding to God's call begins with a period of listening, attuning one's heart and mind to the divine through prayer, reflection, and meditation. Discernment, the process of seeking clarity about one's vocation, is a crucial step in responding to God's call. It involves a deepening awareness of who we are, our gifts, passions, and the needs of the world around us. This requires self-reflection and an openness to where God may be leading. Spiritual guides or mentors can often help in this process, offering wisdom and insight to those seeking direction. However, discerning God's call is not always easy. There are often competing voices, internal doubts, societal pressures, and the distractions of daily life that can make it difficult to discern what God is asking. Yet, those who seek sincerely will find that God is faithful in revealing the path, even if the journey unfolds slowly over time. While some may believe that God's call is reserved for specific individuals, such as priests, prophets, or saints, this is a misconception. God's calling extends to all of humanity. Every person, regardless of their background, is invited to live out a divine purpose in their lives. This calling might manifest differently depending on the individual's circumstances, talents, and opportunities. But at its core, it is always about living in alignment with God's will and contributing to the greater good. In this sense, God's calling is both personal and communal. It calls individuals to personal growth and holiness while simultaneously calling them to serve others. In the Christian tradition, Jesus' command to love your neighbor as yourself encapsulates this dual nature of the calling. It is not enough to focus solely on one's own relationship with God. To truly respond to God's call, one must also engage with the needs and suffering of the world. Responding to God's call is rarely easy. It often requires courage, sacrifice, and a willingness to step into the unknown. The biblical stories of those called by God often involve trials and struggles. Moses resisted his call, feeling inadequate for the task. Jonah initially fled from his call to prophesy to Nineveh, and even Jesus faced deep anguish as he embraced his ultimate calling in the Garden of Gethsemane. For many, following God's call may mean stepping out of comfort zones, making difficult choices, or facing opposition. It might involve giving up personal ambitions, confronting injustice, or taking up the cause of those who are marginalized. However, those who answer the call often find that the sacrifices made lead to a deeper sense of fulfillment and peace, as they are living in harmony with their divine purpose. In today's world, God's call is as relevant as ever. With so many challenges facing humanity, poverty, inequality, environmental degradation, conflict, God's call is a call to action. It is an invitation to be agents of change, to embody the values of love, justice, and mercy in a world that desperately needs them. Each person is called to respond in their own unique way. Some may be called to lead communities of faith, while others may be called to serve in the fields of education, healthcare, social justice, or the arts. Whatever the specific nature of the call, the response must be rooted in a desire to reflect God's love and compassion to the world. God's calling is a profound and transformative experience that invites humanity into a deeper relationship with the divine and a more purposeful existence. It calls each person to discover their unique vocation and to contribute to the common good in ways that honor God and serve others. While the journey of responding to God's call is not without its challenges, it is one that leads to a life of deeper meaning, fulfillment, and spiritual joy. In the end, God's call is about more than just personal spirituality. It is about participating in the work of healing and redeeming the world. To respond to this call is to embrace the sacred task of living out the values of love, justice, and mercy in every aspect of life. Throughout history, the idea of God's calling has been a central theme in the lives of countless individuals and communities. It represents an invitation to live with purpose, respond to divine guidance, and participate in the unfolding of God's plan for humanity. God's call is deeply personal, yet profoundly universal, touching the hearts of individuals while simultaneously speaking to the collective human experience. Whether through religious texts, personal convictions, or moments of deep reflection, the calling of God challenges people to rise above their circumstances, embrace a higher purpose, and contribute to the greater good of humanity. At its core, God's calling refers to the divine invitation extended to each person to align their life with a higher purpose. This calling is not limited to a specific group of people or a particular religious tradition. It is a spiritual concept found across cultures and belief systems, highlighting the belief that human life has meaning beyond the material or mundane. For many, God's call signifies the pursuit of a life filled with compassion, integrity, and service to others. In the Christian tradition, for example, God's calling is rooted in Scripture. The Bible is full of stories of individuals who were called by God to fulfill a specific mission. Abraham was called to leave his homeland and become the father of a great nation. Moses was called to lead the Israelites out of slavery in Egypt. The prophets, such as Isaiah and Jeremiah, were called to speak truth and justice to a wayward society. In each case, God's call led people to step outside their comfort zones and take up a transformative role in the world. However, God's calling is not exclusive to biblical figures or religious leaders. It is an invitation extended to all people, urging them to discover their unique purpose in life and how they can contribute to the well-being of others. This universal call serves as a reminder that every person has inherent worth and the potential to make a positive impact on the world. Understanding and responding to God's calling requires attentiveness and discernment. In a world filled with distractions, noise, and competing demands, it can be difficult to hear the voice of God. For many, the first step toward responding to this divine invitation is learning to listen. This listening often takes place in moments of silence, reflection, and prayer, where individuals open their hearts and minds to God's guidance. In some cases, the call may come through life circumstances, a deep sense of dissatisfaction with the status quo, a desire to pursue justice, or a feeling of being drawn toward a particular vocation. For others, the call might be a more gradual realization that unfolds over time as they grow in their understanding of who they are and what they are meant to do. Once a person discerns God's calling, the next step is response. This response requires courage, faith, and a willingness to embrace the unknown. Answering God's call often involves stepping into unfamiliar territory, taking risks, and making sacrifices. It is not a path of ease, but it is one that leads to deeper fulfillment and purpose. While God's calling is personal, it also has a collective dimension. Each person is called not only to pursue their individual path, but also to contribute to the greater good of society. In many religious traditions, God's call emphasizes the importance of community, justice, and care for the marginalized. For instance, Jesus' teachings in the New Testament stress the need to love one's neighbor and care for those in need. This communal aspect of God's calling challenges individuals to look beyond their personal ambitions and to engage in the larger work of building a just and compassionate world. Whether through acts of charity, standing up for the oppressed, or working toward peace and reconciliation, God's call compels people to seek the common good. Furthermore, God's call is often heard in the context of relationships. Families, communities, and spiritual leaders can help individuals discern their callings and provide support as they seek to live out their divine purpose. This shared journey reinforces the idea that God's calling is not only about individual transformation, but also about fostering a better world for all. While the calling of God is a source of inspiration and direction, it is not without challenges. Responding to this call often requires people to confront their fears, doubts, and insecurities. In the Bible, even great leaders like Moses hesitated when called by God, expressing feelings of inadequacy and fear. Jonah tried to run away from his calling, and even the disciples of Jesus struggled to fully understand and follow the path laid before them. In modern times, the challenges of answering God's call may come in the form of societal pressures, personal doubts, or the demands of daily life. Many may feel uncertain about how to respond to God's call, especially in a world that often values material success over spiritual fulfillment. Others may fear the sacrifices required to follow a divine path, whether it be in terms of time, resources, or relationships. However, those who answer God's call often find that the rewards far outweigh the challenges. The sense of purpose and inner peace that comes from living in alignment with one's divine calling can provide deep fulfillment and joy. Moreover, responding to God's call can lead to a life of meaning that transcends personal gain and contributes to the betterment of humanity. In today's world, the call of God remains as relevant as ever. With global challenges such as inequality, conflict, environmental degradation, and social division, the need for individuals to respond to a higher purpose is critical. God's call invites people to step up and engage with the pressing issues of the day, bringing their unique gifts and talents to address the problems facing humanity. This calling is not just for religious leaders or those in ministry. It extends to people in every walk of life. Teachers, artists, healthcare workers, business leaders, and activists. Each person has the potential to make a positive impact on the world by answering God's call in their own way. Whether through acts of kindness, professional excellence, or advocacy for justice, responding to God's call involves aligning one's life with values of love, compassion, and integrity. The calling of God to people is a powerful and transformative force that has shaped the lives of individuals and communities throughout history. It is an invitation to live with purpose, to seek the greater good, and to engage with the world in meaningful ways. Whether heard through moments of quiet reflection or experienced through life's challenges, God's call encourages individuals to step into their divine purpose and contribute to the betterment of society. While answering God's call requires discernment, courage, and perseverance, it is a path that leads to deep fulfillment and lasting impact. In a world that often feels fractured and uncertain, responding to God's calling offers a way to bring healing, hope, and justice to all. Ultimately, God's call reminds us that we are all part of a larger story, one in which we are invited to play a vital role in creating a more loving, compassionate, and just world.